Think your life is hard? You wouldn't last a single day in medieval times. Our modern comforts have made us soft, and what people dealt with daily back then would shock you to your core. Let's start with medieval food, the stuff that would have you running back to the 21st century faster than you can say DoorDash. First, forget everything you've seen in movies about grand feasts. For regular folks, meals were bland, boring, and often dangerous. Most people ate a diet about as exciting as watching paint dry. Peasants lived mainly on pottage, a sad, watery stew made from whatever vegetables they could grow, cooked in the same pot for days on end. It was the medieval version of Mom's mystery casserole, except instead of hiding veggies, it was hiding weevils and dirt. Bread was a staple, but it wasn't the fluffy, pre-sliced stuff we enjoy. Medieval bread was dense, dark, and packed with unwanted extras. The flour was ground between stone wheels that would chip off into the mix. People had stronger teeth back then, not from good genes, but from constantly chewing on what was essentially rock-filled dough. And here's a terrifying fact. A lot of bread contained ergot, a fungus that grows on rye. Ergot poisoning causes hallucinations, burning sensations, and could be fatal. Some historians believe it contributed to witch hunt hysteria because entire towns would start tripping at once. Imagine thinking your neighbor is a witch when really your baker just needed to clean his mill. Meat was a luxury. When people did get it, it was often borderline rotten because there was no refrigeration. To mask the taste, they used heavy spices if they could afford them. Otherwise, you just held your nose and hoped for the best. The 5-second rule was more like the 5-week rule. The worst part? You couldn't even wash this awful food down with water because it was often contaminated with waste and would make you sick. So instead, everyone, including children, drank weak beer or ale. The brewing process killed the germs. One study found the average peasant drank about 5 pints, 8 pints, cintoi, of ale a day. Medieval kids didn't need fake IDs to drink. They needed them to get a glass of water. By now, your stomach is probably turning, which brings us perfectly to our next medieval horror. Bathrooms. For the average person, going to the bathroom meant using a paifi, chamber pot, a basic bucket kept under the bed. Once filled, you'd simply toss its contents out the window and into the street below. The common practice was to shout "Gardez-le," from the French garde à l'eau, meaning watch out for the water. Though by water, they meant something far less pleasant. If you were lucky enough to visit a castle, you might find a garderobe, a stone seat with a hole that dropped waste straight down the castle wall. Kings and queens had thrones, but their toilets were just drafty holes. The job of collecting this waste fell to workers called gong farmers. These brave or desperate souls would empty cesspits, working only at night because the smell was so unbearable. They were paid well, about 4 times a laborer's wage, but they were social outcasts. The smell of medieval cities was legendary. Rivers like the Thames were so polluted they were described as monsters of stink. And toilet paper? Forget it. People used leaves, moss, or their left hand. The Romans used sponges on sticks, but that knowledge was mostly lost. After a day of drinking ale and navigating these biohazards, you'd be ready to head home. But the fun was just beginning. Forget romantic notions of being a valiant knight. Most people were peasant farmers who worked from sunrise to sunset. Their daily routine? Wake at dawn, work until dusk, collapse, repeat until death. Records show a farm worker would burn over 4,000 calories a day. From pure physical labor. They didn't need gym memberships, They just needed to survive until the weekend. Trades were just as brutal. Blacksmiths breathed in toxic fumes. Tanners used urine and chemicals that stained their skin and made them permanent social pariahs. Apprenticeships started at age 7. Children would be sent away to work for a master for up to 14 years. With such demanding work and poor nutrition, your body would wear out quickly. And if it did, God help you. Medieval medicine was practically torture. Their WebMD had one diagnosis for everything. You're probably going to die. A simple cold could be a death sentence. They believed illness came from an imbalance of 4 humors: blood, phlegm, black bile, and yellow bile. Got a fever? Time for bloodletting. They'd cut you open and drain your blood into a bowl. Leeches were another popular treatment. One text recommended using 70 at once. The mortality rate was staggering. About 30% of children died before age 5. The average life expectancy was between 30 and 40. The bubonic plague wiped out half of Europe. Dental problems were horrific. Tooth decay was rampant, and their idea of a dentist was a barber with a strong grip and a pair of pliers. Even the medicines were deadly. Mercury was prescribed for everything. Their prescription drugs didn't need warning labels. The side effect was always, might kill you faster than the disease. And if sickness didn't get you, the justice system might. Justice wasn't just blind, it was downright cruel and completely random. Laws varied wildly from town to town. What was legal in one village could get you executed 5 miles away. Over 200 crimes carried the death penalty, including cutting down a tree in the king's forest. Trials were nothing like today. To prove your innocence, you might face a trial by ordeal. You'd carry a red-hot iron bar. If your burns healed cleanly, you were innocent. Or you'd be thrown into a lake. If you sank, and often drowned, you were innocent. If you floated, you were guilty and executed. It was a literal no-win situation. Execution methods were designed to be public spectacles. Hanging was merciful. Drawing and quartering, being disemboweled and chopped into pieces, was reserved for traitors. Public executions were community events, like a horrifying festival. Torture was standard to extract confessions. The rack, the Iron Maiden, thumb screws. Most people would confess to anything just to make it stop. So the next time you complain about your Wi-Fi being slow or your coffee being cold, remember, it could be worse. You could be chewing on rock bread, drinking nothing but beer, and hoping you don't get accused of witchcraft because the baker used bad flour. The past might seem romantic in movies, but the reality was a daily, brutal struggle for survival that makes our modern problems look pretty comfortable.